Rome, August 10th, 258 AD. A metal gridiron sits over burning coals. The heat is unbearable, and chained to that gridiron, being slowly roasted alive, is Lawrence, a 33-year-old deacon of the Roman Church. He's been on the grill for what feels like an eternity. The pain is unimaginable. His executioners watch, waiting for him to renounce his faith, to beg for mercy, to scream. Instead, Lawrence speaks. His voice is steady, almost cheerful. "I'm well done on this side. Turn me over." The Roman prefect and executioners are stunned. Did this man, being burned alive, just crack a joke? Yes, he did. And that joke, made in the face of excruciating death, would make Lawrence one of the most beloved saints in Christian history, the patron saint of cooks, chefs, and comedians, a martyr remembered not just for dying for his faith, but for his sense of humor while doing it. This is the story of St. Lawrence, the deacon who gave away the church's treasures, defied the Roman Empire, and died with a quip that echoed through 1,800 years of history. The Deacon and His Duty, 257, 258 AD. Lawrence was born around 225 AD in Huesca, Spain. He met the future Pope Sixtus II in Zaragoza, and eventually both men traveled to Rome. In 257 AD, when Sixtus became Pope, he ordained Lawrence as one of the 7 deacons of the Roman Church. As archdeacon, the chief deacon, Lawrence had a specific responsibility: managing the church's material goods and distributing alms to the poor. He was the church's treasurer and social services director combined. He knew every widow, every orphan, every sick person in Rome who relied on church charity. This was during the reign of Emperor Valerian, who ruled from 253 to 260 AD. Initially tolerant of Christians, Valerian changed course in 257, when he issued an edict commanding that all bishops, priests, and deacons offer sacrifices to Roman gods. Those who refused faced exile or death. In 258, Valerian escalated. He ordered that all clergy be arrested and executed immediately without trial. The persecution intensified. Churches were raided, Christian leaders hunted. On August 6, 258, Pope Sixtus II was celebrating Mass in an underground chapel near the cemeteries when Roman soldiers found him. They killed Sixtus and 6 of his deacons on the spot. Lawrence wasn't with them. He'd been spared temporarily because the Romans wanted something from him. According to legend, as Sixtus was being led to execution, Lawrence cried out, "Father, where are you going without your deacon? Why do you leave me behind?" Sixtus replied that Lawrence would follow him to martyrdom within 3 days. Lawrence knew what was coming, and he had 3 days to prepare. The treasures of the church. The Roman prefect summoned Lawrence with an offer. Valerian's military campaigns were expensive. The empire needed money, and the Romans believed the Christian church was wealthy. All those golden chalices, silver plates, precious altar vessels. The prefect told Lawrence, "Bring the church's treasures, surrender the wealth, and you might be spared." The prefect reportedly said, "You Christians say we are cruel to you, but that is not what I have in mind. I am told that your priests offer in gold, that the sacred blood is offered in silver cups, that you have golden candlesticks at your evening services. Now your doctrine says that you must render to Caesar what is his. Bring these treasures. The emperor needs them." Lawrence asked for 3 days to gather the treasures. The prefect agreed. Lawrence spent those 3 days liquidating the church's material wealth. He sold everything: the golden chalices, the silver patens, the altar vessels, everything of value, and he gave all the money to the poor. Every coin, every denarius, he distributed it to widows, orphans, the sick, the blind, the crippled, the suffering. On the 3rd day, Lawrence returned to the prefect, and he brought people with him, hundreds of Rome's poorest citizens, the disabled, the diseased, the destitute. Lawrence gestured to them and announced, "These are the treasures of the church." He added, "Behold in these poor persons the treasures which I promised to show you, to which I will add pearls and precious stones, those widows and consecrated virgins, which are the church's crown." It was brilliant, defiant, and absolutely enraging to the Roman authorities. The prefect was furious. This wasn't just disobedience. It was mockery. Lawrence had deliberately misunderstood, turned the demand into a theological statement, and embarrassed the empire. The prefect made his decision. Lawrence would die. But not quickly, not by beheading like the other Roman citizens. Lawrence would die slowly, painfully, by inches. The gridiron. The Romans prepared an iron gridiron, a metal grate used for cooking. They placed burning coals beneath it and chained Lawrence to the top. The gridiron execution was designed to maximize suffering. Unlike crucifixion or burning at the stake, which kill relatively quickly, gridiron torture roasts the victim slowly. The heat is intense, but not immediately lethal. You don't suffocate or burn up. You cook, gradually, agonizingly. Lawrence was placed on the gridiron and the torture began. The ancient sources don't agree on exact details. Modern scholars, including St. Ambrose of Milan, debate whether Lawrence was actually grilled or beheaded. But the tradition, recorded by Ambrose, the poet Prudentius, and other early church fathers, says he died on the gridiron. And that's where the famous quote comes in. After suffering for what witnesses describe as a long time, Lawrence spoke. Different sources record slight variations, but the essence is the same. "I'm well done on this side. Turn me over." Or in another version, "This side is cooked. Turn me over and eat." Or, "I'm done on this side. Turn me over." The exact wording varies, but the message is clear. Lawrence, being roasted alive, made a joke about being cooked, while he was literally being cooked. It's extraordinary, horrifying and hilarious simultaneously, a moment of defiance masked as humor, a declaration that even in death, they couldn't break his spirit. And according to tradition, it worked. Many conversions to Christianity throughout Rome reportedly followed Lawrence's death, including those of several senators who witnessed his execution. Lawrence died on August 10th, 258 AD. He was 33 years old. Why the joke matters. Lawrence's final words are more than just dark humor. They're a theological and psychological statement. Theologically, the joke demonstrates fearlessness in the face of death. Lawrence isn't afraid. He's not begging. He's not renouncing his faith. Instead, he's making his executioners uncomfortable by treating his own death as trivial. The worst thing they can do to him doesn't frighten him. Psychologically, humor in extreme suffering is a form of resistance. When you joke about your torture, you're asserting control. You're saying, "You may control my body, but you don't control my mind or spirit. You can kill me, but you can't defeat me." And practically, the joke is memorable. Lawrence could have died silently, could have prayed quietly, could have screamed. Instead, he made sure people would remember how he died. That quip ensured his martyrdom would be talked about, repeated, remembered. It worked. 1,800 years later, we're still talking about it. The instant saint. Lawrence's veneration began immediately. Within decades, he was one of the most popular saints in Rome. Churches were built over his burial site. His name was included in the Roman canon of the Mass, one of only a handful of saints honored that way. The Basilica of San Lorenzo fuori le mura, St. Lawrence outside the walls, was built over his tomb and remains one of Rome's 7 great pilgrimage churches. Emperor Constantine himself ordered a chapel built on the site of Lawrence's martyrdom. Multiple other Roman churches are dedicated to Lawrence. San Lorenzo in Panisperna, where he was executed. San Lorenzo in Fonte, where he baptized fellow prisoners before his death. San Lorenzo in Lucina, where his chains are kept, and several others. The gridiron itself, or parts of it, became a relic. Churches across Europe claim pieces of Lawrence's gridiron, each preserved and venerated. And Lawrence became a patron saint. Multiple patronages, actually. Deacons, his occupation; the poor, his ministry; cooks and chefs, the gridiron; firefighters, the fire; and, most delightfully, comedians, the joke. He's the only saint who's a patron of comedians, because he died laughing at death itself. Legend or history? Modern scholars debate Lawrence's death. St. Augustine and other church fathers recorded the gridiron story, but some historians suggest Lawrence was probably beheaded like other Roman citizens. The gridiron story might be legendary embellishment, a dramatic detail added later to make the martyrdom more vivid and memorable. But here's what's interesting. Even if the gridiron execution is legendary, the legend itself matters. The early church remembered Lawrence as someone who maintained joy and humor even facing death. Whether the exact details are accurate, that's how he was characterized from the earliest records. The poet Prudentius, writing in the 4th century, just 150 years after Lawrence's death, records the gridiron story and the famous quip. St. Ambrose of Milan mentions it. St. Leo the Great preached about it. If it's legend, it's very early legend, accepted and repeated by people close enough to the events to have known witnesses. And regardless of historical accuracy, the story's impact is real. For 1,800 years, Christians have remembered Lawrence as the martyr who joked while dying. That memory has shaped Christian understanding of martyrdom, courage, and faith. The cultural legacy. Lawrence appears constantly in Christian art. Paintings, sculptures, mosaics, frescoes, always depicted holding a gridiron. It's his symbol. You see Lawrence, you see the gridiron. Titian painted the Martyrdom of St. Lawrence. Bernini sculpted him. Fra Angelico created a fresco series about his life. Countless medieval and Renaissance artists depicted him, always with the gridiron prominently featured. Lawrence's feast day, August 10, is one of the most important in the Christian calendar. It's also when the Perseid meteor shower peaks each year, leading to the shower being called the Tears of St. Lawrence Woody. And the cultural impact extends beyond religion. Lawrence represents humor in adversity, defiance through wit, the idea that you can face terrible circumstances and still laugh. That's universally appealing. You don't need to be Christian to appreciate someone making a joke while being executed. It's human, relatable, inspiring. The final turn. So here's what happened. In 258 AD, during Roman persecution of Christians, Deacon Lawrence was ordered to surrender the church's treasures. He gave all the money to the poor, then presented the poor themselves as the true treasures. The Romans executed him on a gridiron, and as he died, he reportedly said, "I'm well done on this side. Turn me over." That joke made him a saint. Not just any saint, one of the most beloved in Christian history, patron of cooks, chefs, and comedians. A man remembered for dying with humor. Whether the story is exactly historically accurate doesn't matter as much as its impact. For 1,800 years, Lawrence has represented courage, defiance, and the power of humor, even in death. The next time you're facing something difficult, remember Lawrence. Remember that even being burned alive, he found something to laugh about. And if he could joke on a gridiron, you can probably find humor in whatever you're dealing with. That's his legacy. Not just martyrdom, but martyrdom with a punchline. Well done, Lawrence. Well done.